Welcome back to Blockmates TV. We're gonna go through layer threes today. You might have heard of L2s, definitely heard of layer ones, but what the hell are layer threes? We're gonna have a look at some of the layer three projects that are coming online. Some are already live. There's been a recent uptick in activity, so we're gonna try and cover that. Some of the projects that are over there. Are they useful? Are we gonna get layer fours, layer fives, layer sixes? Well, there might be some kind of indication of that based on this video. And then what we're gonna do is try and assess whether it's worth our time, money, and effort getting over there. How do we get over there? How do we buy stuff that's on these L3s? Is there anything actually worth buying? Yeah, just basically go through how the architecture and stuff like that works. And hopefully by the end of it, you come away with a greater understanding of what layer threes are. And you might have made up your mind whether you want to entertain the idea of layer threes. So we'll get to it. So first of all, what the hell are L3s? So if you've used Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, a couple of others. These are layer twos. So naturally, if you go back to the age-old problem of Ethereum not being able to scale properly, it can only handle X amount of throughput per second, X amount of transactions per second. It's extremely gas intensive. So you, the end user, are paying an awful lot of fees. So the way that the Ethereum architecture is beginning to set up and move towards now looks like there are going to be these rollups, whether that be an optimistic rollup like Arbitrum or Optimism or Base or things like that, or ZK rollups like Stacknet or ZK Sync. So different kind of chains with different kind of use cases and purposes that effectively handle a lot of transactions on the L2, and then they'll bundle these transactions up and then they'll send them back to the L1 as if it were kind of one transaction. It's like high level, if that's how you kind of think about it. So lots of transactions, lots of interactions on the layer 2. They roll them up and then they post the roll up back to the L1. So it only has to handle a fraction of the transactions on the L1 because a lot of that was handled on the L2. So that's the easiest way to kind of think about it. This bundling of transactions and then submitting it back to the L1. So yeah, you'll have seen like a lot of traction over there. Arbitrum had its day in the sun like in 2022 really and into 2023 leading up to the airdrop, and then activity kind of fizzled out. And they're kind of not going to say they have kind of an issue currently. I still think they've found great product market fit, and I think there's a lot of great applications over there and some really great builders. Optimism again, they've had great traction, less so on the DeFi side, I think, and I don't necessarily know how it plays out for the Optimism L2 with regards to how it positions itself in the market because of obviously the big elephant in the room, which is Base. And Base used the OP stack, which is Optimism's basically like SDK of how you would go and roll out your own L2. So it's like their framework for how other people and other networks or aspiring networks can go and roll out their own L2. And I don't know if that just eats Optimism's use case or fuels this whole idea of the Optimism superchain. Arbitrum also have their stack, Arbitrum Orbit, to go and build different L2s and L3s. We'll get into that in a minute, but high level, if you think about it as this kind of the Arbitrum docs, this is showing what Orbit is. So you obviously have the Ethereum L1 here, where everything settles back to. You've got Arbitrum 1, which you might have used. If you would listen to this, you've probably used it, to be honest. Yeah, that settles back to the L1. You can have an Orbit L2, which again uses the Arbitrum Orbit stack to create your own L2. Or what the video is about today is you have these L3s, which settle to the L2, which inadvertently settle to the L1. Why would you need to do that? Are L2s getting enough traction that we need to then go and look at L3s? Yes and no. So there have been quite large advances in bringing gas costs down, mainly EIP 4844, which we had seen particularly during high levels of demand on specific L2s, that gas was actually starting to increase and it was starting to get into a couple of dollars per transaction. Now, that's nothing compared to what we've typically seen on Ethereum, although looking at gas on Ethereum at the minute, I think it's like $4 per transaction. But we didn't necessarily hope for gas fees and transactions that actually cost into kind of $1 to $5 range, which L2s did at some point, probably 12 months ago. And now we've had multiple different infrastructure builds and EIPs that have pushed us forward towards lowering the cost of transactions. And mainly that comes down to data availability. It's one of the core pillars of blockchain architecture, which requires L2s to be able to submit data previously, which was only Ethereum, and that was quite costly and gas intensive. So with 4844, that has drastically reduced the cost of data availability submitting back to the L1. But then we've also had separate blockchains like Celestia or EigenDA, and there's multiple different ones coming online now where you have different routes to be able to kind of submit your data back to these side chains or sovereign chains as well, which brings down your costs dramatically for the L2. Still, that may not be great for if you think about if you were going to have an extremely high throughput application. Maybe it's social, maybe it's a social buy application, maybe it's a gaming application, maybe it's like a really, really high throughput centralized exchange. Maybe it's a designed for kind of high frequency trading, or maybe it's just a chain that wants to encourage complete degeneracy and have a billion different meme coins. And we've seen even Solana at one point, based on pure demand from memes, got absolutely destroyed, and they had to go back to the drawing board with regards to what the consensus looks like and what the kind of gas optimization looks like. So now Ethereum L1 now begins to look like it is just a kind of settlement layer for L2s and L3s, and I think that's kind of the revised vision for Ethereum, which kind of makes sense. It's a good pivot from a marketing perspective to say, yeah, well, you weren't supposed to be using the L1 anywhere. It's just a settlement layer for L2s and L3s, which is kind of good, kind of funny, but is what it is. And yeah, we're starting to see this emerging ecosystem of L2s and L3s. So how do L3s even launch? Like how would you even go about doing that? So Arbitrum Orbit, the Arbitrum stack, and the OP stack now have full support for L3s. So you're probably going to see a lot of development on there because it's a lot easier for these aspiring chains that now go and launch, or these applications to go and launch their app chains as L3s. And what do I mean by an app chain? Well, as I was mentioned earlier, maybe, I don't know, a decentralized gambling order book or something like that, where they want to have complete control. They don't want to share block space with, neighboring applications. They want to have their own they want to have their own chain, they want to have their own space. They may want to have their own native token to be able to pay for gas. They want to kind of optimize the chain that suits their application best. So that's where you'd get an app chain that needs that little bit of customization that could allow their chain to flourish. And then you've also got this like rollup as a service providers such as Caldera, Conduit, Altlayer. I think Gelato do it as well, where effectively you just go to them and you tell them what you want, and then even in a matter of clicks, there's videos online being able to deploy your own L3 or L2 in a matter of clicks. So there was a couple of rollbacks that happened recently, I believe, with some that came from Conduit, so maybe you have to double check that one. I think if you're thinking about this, you're probably not watching this video. This is more like market participant, entry level, and going into the weird stuff. Yeah, so that's what that is. There are a few different features as this is mentioned. I'll probably just briefly go over them. So Arbitrum 1 is an example of rollup. Arbitrum Nova is an example of an AnyTrust chain, and all an AnyTrust chain is compared to regular rollup from in the Arbitrum stack is that it has a few more trust assumptions. So you are relying on this data availability committee, which does kind of push towards a little bit more centralization as opposed to a more permissionless system. But it then drastically reduces your gas costs again by offsetting your data towards this data availability committee, but it does have centralization forces. So there is a kind of pros and cons of that, and it might, I don't know, maybe that suits the app chain. Maybe it's not exactly needing this kind of 100% decentralized permissionless kind of system. So and the trade-off there would be, well, the more permissionless the system has to be, the more cost inefficient it is. So those are the pros and cons of that. Don't want to really dwell on that too much. So yeah, what have we kind of got? What is the current kind of rundown, and what is the kind of zeitgeist currently on the market? So as I mentioned, briefly went over, the Arbitrum Orbit stack allows people to deploy that. Optimism recently announcing L3s to the superchain, so similar to Arbitrum in the fact that you can have customized gas tokens. Maybe you want to launch and you want to give some additional utility to your own token. They have their own data availability solution as well. And then this is kind of the whole idea that ETH will just be the settlement layer for L2s and L3s. And then Optimism itself looks like it's then going to go and try and replicate that and be this kind of super chain for L3s and adjacent L2s as well. So they're the kind of main players in the providing space for L3s. Linear and ZK Sync era, I believe, do have L3s that are coming online. We'll go through them here anyway. So L2 Beats, obviously great website, really, really great website. They do have a tab now, so you just got a summary, active projects, and then layer 3 projects. What we're going to do is just sort by total, which is TVL. And then we're also going to sort by excluding associated token, because you can get some drastic kind of fudging of the numbers by having native tokens over there. So actually we'll leave it ticked off for now. So what we're seeing here is MXC conducts verified. So we're gonna ignore that one for now. The one that I think a lot of people are probably interested in the most is Sanko. So Sanko is a chain on Arbitrum Orbit. It settles to Arbitrum 1, and the whole premise is gaming, NFTs, and social. 18.7 million TVL, although their native token DMT accounts for 97.28% of that, and there are around $500,000 worth of stables over there. So there are new assets coming over there. Briefly, there is the Sanko bridge, Sanko.xyz or Z, depending on where you're in the world, /bridge. Sanko.xyz, XYZ, if you want to have a look at Sanko tools, swap, Sanko pets. Camelot is actually deployed over there, which I thought was quite interesting. And they also have an NFT AMM SudoSwap, and then they're also there. And yeah, just a quick, what is Sanko? Sanko is an Arbitrum Orbit Layer 3 designed to bring in a value to the golden days of gaming. 250 milliseconds transaction finality, superior developer tooling. So very much game chain, very much bringing back the OG online gaming space. It does use AnyTrust. It does have the data availability committee, which previously mentioned. That drastically reduces their fees. So obviously, if you're thinking about games, you need high throughput, and maybe it's not necessarily they can concede on the idea that it's not the most permissionless system to have the throughput that they need. Maybe like further in the future that they decide to create a more permissionless system or decentralize it a little bit more. But for now, I think it probably makes sense for them. So that's really interesting. I really like it. Their token has been doing really, really well off the back of it. Yeah, as I say, if you want to bridge over, I think you can bridge over from Arbitrum by bridging over their native token, ETH or USDC, hence probably why you're seeing an awful lot of the TVL over there making up in their native token DMT. Degen Chain, if you'd have seen, well, if you've been following the base ecosystem, you'll have noticed that there is an L3 that use the Arbitrum Ob stack built on top of base, social, DeFi, and universal. So they're just kind of making this universal chain. And these guys syndicate. I did notice there was something weird that Degen, the token, which initially looked like it was just a meme coin, were going through this kind of raise, and I was like, why the hell would this meme coin be doing a raise? I thought it was like really, really bearish. And then they obviously go on to kind of create this L3 again using AnyTrust. Seems to be a recurring kind of theme here with the data availability committee. They use the native token Degen. They use Conduit. I think this had a recent rollback, so maybe you want to check that out before you go and do that. And yeah, there was some activity over there, but not necessarily sustained, in my opinion. Although with this kind of recent revival and uptick in L3 activity, I think it could be something to keep an eye on. Plus, it catches that kind of base narrative, and I think if the Coinbase smart wallet, which is recently launched, has any kind of onboarding towards Degen Chain, I think that could be something to keep an eye on. XAI, which I've kind of got mixed feelings about with XAI because, as I say, 99.14% of their TVL makes up in native token. This is an L3 on Arbitrum, using obviously Arbitrum Orbit, and it's focused on gaming. So I think there is like a huge 21 days, there is $122 million, which is 71.59% of the supply coming onto the market. So, yeah, it's a pretty big unlock coming. I will get the login from these guys so I can go through this in a later video. But yeah, I mean, so you've got this kind of bearish catalyst coming up, particularly if you're just focusing on token price. But then you also have this coming up, which is quite interesting. So this is a governance proposal on the Arbitrum forum, which is being granted, so it reached supermajority and voted for this vote. So catalyzed gaming ecosystem growth on Arbitrum. 76.27% voted for this and a 65% participation rate, which is pretty good. The proposal was created after a successful snapshot A temperature check for the Arbitrum DAO to empower gaming with a 3-year, 200 million Arbitrum ARB token with the goal of powering the Arbitrum gaming ecosystem, the best studio and games in the Web3 industry. So that is a shit ton of money. $200 million ARB over 3 years, which is, so it's been transferred to the multi-sig, so 225 million, which is $180 million. There have been some pushback on this. Some of the people that are participating in that are kind of seeing stuff like this over the line are getting a ridiculous sum of money. I think it's like $600,000 a year or some shit. They're looking to build out the infrastructure, build grants. $135 million ARB will be used for investments. Infrastructure bounties, 40 million ARB, and then it goes through this decision-making process. And I don't know how I feel about DAOs making decisions on investments. There could be kind of lobbying that goes on there, but we'll have to see. Nevertheless, it's still a huge investment that's going into the ecosystem. So we'll have some like strong teams backing it. So it's something definitely to keep an eye on. Will these guys benefit from it? I don't know. I wouldn't want to be holding a token if there's 75% of the token about to be unlocked. If we actually exclude the native token, right? So there are two that stand out ahead of Sanko, which I think is my preferred runner here. So we've had an increase of 115% over the past, I believe this is 7 days, in non-native token deposits, so stablecoin deposits. So there's proof of play Apex, which I never really heard of, if I'm completely honest. And this is again on top of Arbitrum 1. And their metrics seem to be moving in the right direction. I do need to do a little bit more research. So raised $33 million from A16Z and Green Oaks. We make decentralized gaming infrastructure. TLDR, proof of play, is a game studio and blockchain technology company rolled into one, blah, 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 blah. Pirate Nation, on-chain game, maybe worth checking out. But yeah, there's Balaji, Naval, like big backers, and decent pedigree for their team. So this might be something to keep an eye on, give it a watch, and maybe even try it out. There could be something interesting going on there. And then the other L3 that seemed to have a lot of non-native token deposits was Rari Chain, which I do have a link for here. Rari Chain embeds royalties on the node level to guarantee royalty payments, a secure, low-cost, decentralized Ethereum L3 powered by Arbitrum. So a lot of it seems like the BD team at Arbitrum have been doing a good job with regards to getting people to build on Arbitrum Orbit. Whether this new $200 million grant is going to help get people over there or whatever the hell it's going to do, I don't know. But there has been an uptick on this Rari chain as well. I don't necessarily know too much about it. It doesn't immediately pique my interest if I'm 100%. Yeah, Arbitrum's definitely leading the way here. I'm not going to bring up any others. This Molten network was relatively interesting, whereby this is more DeFi-centric chain. Where's the docs? So Molten is a secure, ultra low-cost rollup with OEV, Oracle Extractable Value Protection, which is a big issue for if you're a perpstex. Oracle providers spoofing prices to be extractive for their own benefit, whether that be they're partnered up with a liquidator or whatever have you. There's kind of this underbelly that's happening with regards to this, and not a lot of people are talking about it. There is an API 3 interview, I believe, which Jedi did on the Blockmates, not Blockmates TV, the Blockmates channel, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But yeah, Molten uses Arbitrum Orbit Stack to create custom built L3s for traders. I believe these came from a previous team as well.
Nothing here is
Yeah, so
financial advice.
Unidex,
It's for entertainment and educational purposes
yeah,
only.
quite interesting to
Always
see
do your own research or
a
speak
team
to a
that's
financial
stayed on and
advisor
tried
before
to
making
innovate
any
and
investment
see what they can
decisions.
do with
Enjoy the
regards
episode
to
and like and subscribe.
expanding up. Quite interesting. And then other than that, everything looks really, really small. Not a lot of development just yet, but my main picks would probably be keeping an eye on Sanko. And other than just kind of checking it here, Deck Screener doesn't have it yet. You probably want to go to Defined, which is great. Like the first time I've been on it in a while, and it looks really, really good. And these have a lot of oh, I almost forgot. I'll go into it in a sec. But these have a load of L3s and like emerging chains on over here, so you can go and click on the Sanko chain and have a look at some of the tokens that are moving. I believe Smoke, Stanko, and a few others are doing pretty well. So, but just keep an eye on it. Maybe stuff does well, maybe it doesn't, but like who knows? This is very, very far out on the risk curve and on the risk spectrum. Another really, really interesting one, which is a kind of joke at the same time, is this cheese chain. So this initially launched on Pump.fun on Solana, and it was very, very unassuming, and no one really knew what the hell was going on. Everyone assumed it was just a meme coin, and then people started saying we're going to create our own chain. And then I was like, oh yeah, of course they are. And then they did. They launched Cheese Chain, which is a layer 3 EVM, and it uses cheese or wrapped cheese because it was launched on Solana. And then I think it looks like they've used Caldera and they've used Arbitrum Orbit, Betascan, which is absolutely hilarious. And then they have Chedex, which is their native DEX. So yeah, that's a thing apparently, which is kind of hilarious. And then they have this bridge where you can go from Arbitrum, you can go from Solana through Wormhole to their chain. And then bridging from G-Chain to Solana requires a 7-day waiting period. So because this is the contest period for if there has to be any rollbacks on the L3. So once you get on, do bear in mind that you do have a waiting period to get off. I wonder if Orbiter starts listing these, more L3s come on here. I'd imagine they will if proof of play is there. So keep an eye on that. I can imagine they'll start to update that soon, and then you will get a much quicker on and off ramp just by the liquidity pool on Orbiter. So keep an eye on that. I don't know if there's much else to cover. So that's a kind of a rundown. That's how you get over there. That's how you get. I don't know. That's the truth of it. It's against kind of Solana's monolithic design. Maybe we do. I think an L2, an app on an L2 must show true product market fit and then go and own their own chain and maybe optimize that to suit them. DYDX, but they went and built their own sovereign chain. So do you do that, or do you rely on infrastructure providers like the rollups service and then Arbitrum Orbit or the OP stack? I suppose that comes down to each specific use case. Does it add additional complexity? Maybe. Is the onboarding experience too tedious for new users? It's probably why I'd say you need to get the product market fit before you actually go and do anything like this, as opposed to just building it and hoping people will get over there. Yeah, as I've mentioned, there's been a couple of rollbacks. Maybe that's like a roll-up as a service provider's issue, so you need to keep an eye on who these providers are. And you're almost certainly going to get some chains that are just launching and just going to rug completely. So just be careful of that as well. But other than that, I think it's something to keep an eye on, because I think there certainly will be some opportunity there, particularly if they begin to take off. And one of the reasons I say that is because I don't necessarily think Arbitrum or Optimism or any of the L2s have really created a flourishing environment where they can actually allow their users to make money. I think there's been a couple of people that have made a large amount of money, and I think that came from very, very early investment. And I think people are looking now for greener pastures where there might be a lot more upside. And I think this could be a potential. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm still going to probably plant some seeds up there and see what happens. Not financial advice. Do whatever you want. Don't listen to me. I'm a complete idiot. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, we will be doing one a week. And then we'll also be doing some beginner stuff once a week as well. So give the channel a like. It's really, really hard to grow this new channel. And this is going to be more for explainer stuff, educational stuff, market commentary stuff. And yeah, so come back. enjoy it, and we'll see you next time. Please don't take anything you hear in today's episode as financial advice. Please speak to a trained professional if you do wish to participate in markets. Crypto is inherently risky and you will lose all your money, particularly if you listen to us for financial direction. So enough of that. Please give us a like, subscribe, enjoy the show, and see you next time. All right, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on for next time. See ya.